Story 1. When I had my NDE, I didn't remember what happened until much later after I woke up. I passed out and my heart stopped beating. My boyfriend, who was a firefighter, found me on the floor of his house when he came home. He quickly gave me life-saving care and then I was taken to a hospital. Hours later, when I woke up in the hospital, I felt really alone and sad, thinking, "Oh no, not again. When will this ever stop?" A few days or weeks later, while I was meditating, something really amazing happened. It felt like I received a ton of information all at once, and I remembered it very clearly. It was like standing under a street lamp that was giving off this incredible energy, but it wasn't like regular light. It was super shiny but not too bright. It's hard to explain exactly how it felt. Then time seemed to freeze. This was a relief because I always thought time was my enemy. In that moment, I realized that Mondays and bills wouldn't bother me anymore. Everything just stopped and I was in control. Instead of things falling apart over time, everything started to come back to life and become even more beautiful. It was so amazing. I couldn't help but laugh at myself for taking everything so seriously before. I realized that I chose to come to Earth, but instead of making it a good place to learn and grow, I made it a terrible place. But then, something started to change. It felt like I had a new way of looking at things, and everything felt connected. I felt like all living beings, both physical and non-physical, were all around me, even though the physical beings didn't know it. In that moment, I realized that if I didn't come back, my daughter's life would be much harder. I couldn't bear the thought of her struggling because I wasn't there. I could have stayed in that happy state forever, but I made the choice to come back for her sake. I had this feeling that there were still things I needed to do in this world. It made me freak out and have negative thoughts again. But then, something else amazing happened. I saw this bright light that was soaking up all the negativity. It made me feel better and told me that everything was going to be okay. It had always been okay. This is my life, and it's like this world is just a waiting room for something better. I came here to either visit, learn, or get ready for the next level. I'm not exactly sure which one it is yet. Since that experience, I felt like I'm not like everyone else. It's like I know some special secrets, and I want to share them with everyone. Ever since I've been really interested in spiritual stuff, I've been watching videos on YouTube by a person named Abraham Hicks. He talks about all these wonderful, interesting things. I even started meditating, which I never did before. It's been life-changing. This story was shared by Nicole D. and happened in 2016. Story 2. I felt this really sharp pain in my stomach, like someone stabbed me with a javelin or a sword. It hurt so bad that although it didn't make sense, I checked my stomach for a wound. I should have gone to the hospital that night, but I thought I would feel better with time. Going to the hospital is expensive, so I tried my best to avoid it. The next morning, the intense pain came back. This time it was even stronger and lasted longer than before. I don't remember much after they started getting me ready for emergency surgery. It was really scary. The next thing I remember is being in a dark place. There was no tunnel, no happy family, and no cute kitty. I was with a being, but I don't think he was an angel. He was tall with super long arms and legs. His skin was a weird greenish-gray color and felt like leather. He had wings that hung from his arms like a bat's wings. I couldn't see his face. It was like I was seeing things from my own perspective and from above and behind the being at the same time. I wasn't scared of him. I understood why I was there, probably because I didn't survive the surgery. The being reached out to me and gently wrapped his arms/wings around me without saying a word. As he held me closer, I rested my cheek on his chest. I wasn't scared. Instead, I accepted it and was ready to let go of my life. I was a little sad to leave my family, but I knew they would be okay. I felt peaceful and calm. Then it felt like I was being pulled away from the being. He didn't grab me or try to stop me. He just held on loosely as I was pulled away. When I woke up in the ICU, I still had a tube in my throat. It felt like I was taken from the being right away. It's been a little more than 3 months, and I'm still getting better. There are more surgeries coming up for me. I think about what happened every single day. I will never forget him or any details about what happened. I can say that I'm not scared anymore. But I'm having a hard time living here day by day. knowing that there's something on the other side that brings peace. I also understand that life doesn't last forever. I don't want to rush it because I still have a lot to learn. But sometimes I feel really overwhelmed. I know that everything here, in this world, will eventually disappear. Moving on means I'll be free from this world with its responsibilities and sadness. It all seems so unimportant to me now. I'm not rich, but I don't feel like that's what matters anymore. Nobody gets to keep it. This story was shared by Tammy V and happened in 2019.
Story 3. Before my first NDE, I got really sick and passed out. It was hard to breathe and my mind felt all fuzzy. My whole body was freezing cold. But strangely, I didn't feel any of the usual pains in my shoulder and back that have been bothering me for years. It was kind of peaceful, like I lost 5 of my senses. Then I don't know how much time went by, but it felt like I was floating in the air with nothing to see. It was like being swallowed up by a black hole. I didn't feel anything, couldn't move, and couldn't talk. After a while, pictures started flashing in front of me, starting from when I was grown up and going all the way back to when I was a kid. It went really fast until I saw some pictures I didn't recognize. Finally, I ended up in the universe, surrounded by galaxies and stars I didn't know. Suddenly, I felt a strong force pulling me back towards the black hole. I felt like a shooting star, zooming towards the ground at full speed. I could tell I was above the ground because I saw flickering lights, but everything was blurry because I was falling so fast. Then, I blacked out and felt sick to my stomach. My whole body was shaking. I heard a woman yelling, saying, "He's responding, he's back." Later, I found out that I was brought back to life at the hospital. The stomach ache I felt was because they had put a tube in my throat and pumped my stomach. It took a few days for me to fully recover from this whole experience. My second NDE happened when I was at an internet cafe playing video games. I'd been playing for 2 whole days without taking a break, and I was starting to feel really tired. It was around 11 o'clock at night when I decided to lean back in my chair and rest my eyes for a bit. But then something really weird happened. I suddenly couldn't feel my body anymore, but it actually felt kind of nice. It was as if I was floating. But then things got even stranger. It was so dark that I couldn't see anything, but I could hear people's thoughts from far away. It was like I had superpowers. My friend next to me noticed that something was up and asked me what happened. His voice sounded really loud, like thunder, and I could tell he was scared. I could also hear other people playing video games, and even the sounds of cars honking outside. It was all so overwhelming and I started to get really scared. I thought I was dying. Even though I couldn't see anything, I could sense that there were 2 shadowy figures in front of me. One of them was really dark and blended into the darkness, while the other one had a red glow, like a lantern. I could tell that the voice coming from the red figure was female. It was all so strange, and I couldn't make sense of it. Finally, I snapped to reality, and it felt like I was back in my body again. But I was so exhausted, and my body felt really stiff. My friends asked me what had happened, but I didn't want to tell them the truth because I knew they wouldn't understand. I felt really awful, and just wanted to go home. These experiences were real to me, even though I know people might think I'm crazy if I told them. I just needed to let it all out and feel better. This story was shared by Yiming and happened in 2017. Story 4. Everything felt like it was happening in slow motion. The Ford Granada crashed into me going really fast, around 50 miles per hour. When it hit me, I remember thinking, "Ouch, this is going to hurt a lot." But then, in an instant, it was like my body jumped out of itself. I didn't feel any pain. Instead, I was floating above my lifeless body on the road below. It was confusing at first, but then I realized that my mind was separate from my body. As I hovered over my body, an ambulance arrived and paramedics tried to bring me back to life. They cut off my shirt and checked my leg and ankle for injuries. Time didn't really make sense to me. I just watched and listened to everything that was happening from above. They strapped me onto a stretcher and kept working on me as they rushed me to the hospital. From up there, I saw one of the paramedics move my stuff out of the way. While I was out of my body, I felt this incredible sense of peace that I had never felt before. There was a comforting presence with me as I watched the paramedics trying to save me. Then I heard someone say, "It's not your time yet, you still have more to do." And just like that, I was back in my body, struggling to breathe and feeling a lot of pain. When we got to the hospital, I tried to tell the paramedics and nurses what I had experienced, but they were too busy getting me out of the ambulance and into the care of the hospital staff. They didn't really listen to what I was saying. I caught their attention when the main paramedic in charge of my care started searching for my stuff inside the ambulance. He was asking the other paramedic where they put my clothes and shoes. I spoke up and told him that they were in a cabinet just to his right, a few feet away behind my head. He looked at me like he couldn't believe I was talking to him, and then he was completely shocked when he found out I was right about the cabinet. He asked me how I knew, and I told him that even though I was unconscious and not responding, I could still see and hear everything that was happening at the accident scene and inside the ambulance. I was so confused about what had happened. That was 32 years ago, and ever since that day I started exploring and learning about near-death experiences. It completely changed my life and the choices I make. This journey added so much meaning to my life. Before that first NDE, I was just going with the flow and not really having a purpose. This story was shared by Reverend Larry A. and happened in 1987.